Yeah, good evening, everyone. So, last session we learned about few points related to how to handle mouse events. Huh? Right. So, you tried them. These are generally JavaScript events and React events. All are same in functionality. So, similar type of examples you can try in JavaScript also. Only the point is here how do you define event arguments, how to deal with event arguments, it changes. So yesterday we learned about how to work with mouse events. Next, after understanding mouse event, so today we will see how to deal with another important element state events we will see. After this only you can understand about how to work with keyboard events and others. So we learned about mouse events, how to handle them. And after understanding mouse events, another is element state events. Actually, what are element state events? Element state events, we have options like on change. We have like on blur. We have like on focus. So we have element state events on select start, and we have like on select all are not required. On select we have on select start, on focus, on blur, on change. These are related to element state events. How do we define and work with element state events? So element state events, we have on change, on blur, on focus, on select start. These are regularly used ones. In this, one important you need to know, that is how do we deal with the events related to this change and blur. What is the concept is, we discussed about one-way data binding. One-way data binding means accessing the data from the source, updating in the UI. We discussed that two-way data binding is not supported implicitly. We have to explicitly implement it. And that is possible by using only one event, and that is on change. So you cannot use any another event for two-way binding. Two-way binding can be handled by using only one event. And what is that event? On change. On change. I will show you one example for that. That means we will see here two-way data binding. Two-way data binding. So how do we handle the two-way data binding? Two-way data binding. Two-way data binding is actually, it is a technique of identifying the changes in UI elements and updating into data source. identifying changes in the UI elements and updating into data source. And React can handle two-way binding only by using on change event. It can handle only by using on change event. You cannot use any another event for two-way data binding. Two-way data binding is managed only by using on change. Let's see one example how to handle this example. So we will create a simple component interface. So this is an event demo. So I'm using a simple header like two-way binding. Okay. Now we are using a data list, data term, some username, or say some product name. And the product name is binded with a text box. Input type is text. And we want to display that below. Below we will just use details. In the details we are having a data list and data term is name and data definition here. I am just configuring a constant that is name, some name, okay, set name is equal to use state. By default name is some TV. Now what we are doing, so we are binding that here. What is it? Name. We are binding. Then it will display the value is binded here. So mouse move, right? Where is that mouse move? Here, huh? Yeah. We will clean up that. Okay, now it is showing this name here. So I want to display the name inside this text box. To display the name inside the text box, to the text box, we are using value. Value. The value is coming from name. That means the name is displayed here. And I want to allow modification so that I can update back into the source. I click inside this and I am trying to type. It is not allowing to make any change because by default React is using one-way binding. It will not allow any changes here. Okay, we will try other events. Other events like usually in JavaScript, what you do, you can use on key up, you can use on key press, you can use on blur to verify whether the action is completed or not, whether key pressed or not. That's general JavaScript, you already know. Same I'm writing here. Usually in JavaScript, what we do while they are typing, we can modify the value. That means what I'm doing, I'm using an event called on key up, or I am using an event called on blur. On blur indicates when it loses the focus. You click inside, then it is called focus. When you click outside, then it is called blur. On blur, we will use handle blur. Okay, we will write a function here. And what is the function? Handle blur. It should collect the value from the text box. How to collect the value from text box through E and assign into set name. Set name is what? E dot target dot value. The value entered in the text box is collected and it is stored inside that set name. And for that we are using which event? We are using blur. In JavaScript, you can use any event, blur, key up, key down, anything is okay. For two-way binding, we can use any event in JavaScript. But here observe carefully. So I written a blur and when I written blur, I click inside and try to make the changes. It is not allowing. It is not allowing. Generally, JavaScript will allow. If you already know JavaScript, you know that no need to explain. In JavaScript, suppose this is your general HTML and we have a input type is what? Text, and we have some paragraph. And here we are having a name, value. Value is some value. Okay, we are writing an event. ID is txt name. We are writing an event. What is it? On blur. I will say handle blur is the function. I am writing the script and we are defining the function handle blur. On handle blur, document dot query selector. In the paragraph, we want to display inner HTML. Document get element by ID txt name dot value. That means in JavaScript, what we do is we can use any event to identify the changes. Any event we can use to identify the changes. It allows you to modify, and after that on blur it will update. That is allowed. That is general JavaScript, you already know. JavaScript handles two-way binding by using any event. You can use blur, you can use key up, key down, you can use any event. For example, I am using, instead of blur, I am using on key up. Then what happens? I am typing here, it is going to type that and it is going to display that. That means here some say LG TV something. That means in general, in JavaScript based technologies, we can use any event to identify the changes in the UI and update back. But in React, we cannot. In React, the two-way binding can work only with one event. And what is that event? On change. There is nothing else. That means here I am writing, so the event, I am using the event in the React here. I am using on blur. It's not working. Let's say on key up, on key up. And here on key up, I am trying some changes in this. It's not allowing. Okay, what we will do is we will change this to on change. On change. Function name can be anything, doesn't matter. On change. And now you see here, I am making change and it is now allowing. So in React, two-way binding can be handled only by using only one event. And what is that event? On change. You write all the events, but on change is missing, then it will not allow. That is the key point you need to understand. So two-way binding for any element, not only for checkbox. From a drop down, you want to collect a value. From a slider, you want to collect a value. From a radio checkbox, you want to collect a value. For everyone, you need only one event. And what is that event? On change. On change. So two-way binding can be handled only by using on change. On change. So on change is an synthetic event. Synthetic event of React that allows changes in value. That allows changes in value and updates into the source. That allows changes in value and updates into the source. So you have to configure on change for two-way binding. So how to use different values, we will see one example, we will see how to manage that. So generally two-way binding can be managed in this way. Syntactically, we have a function handle change, and you can use some set value e dot target dot value. So we have a input type text on change. We have to use handle change. So two-way binding can be enabled only by using this. Now we will see one simple example. That means how you manage this. How we can use this on change event. In different places we can implement this. We will see one example how to handle the on change event. So what I will do here is, let's create one example for that. Basic example I will give event demo.jsx. I will copy this example. Just to better, I will change this name reasonably. Instead of handle blur, we are using handle change. When to use other events, we will see now. This is the first option. Now, what is the concept here is, if a user is not entering any name, without entering the name, he clicks outside. That means it is empty. There is no name entered. And when he clicks outside, then I want to show a warning saying that name required. You cannot leave it empty. That means now what we have to do, we will write a function. What is the function? Handle blur. Handle blur, and we will get the event argument. This handle blur will work for the same text box. That means text box is going to use same. What is it? Handle blur. Handle blur, it is using the same. So that means it is using handle blur. On blur, it will handle blur. Now I want to collect the value from this. I want to collect the value and verify. And you know, I will keep a error message constant. So this is a name error, and a set name error is equal to use state. Name error is as of now empty string. Where to display the name error? Here, a data definition, class text danger, and here we want to display the name error. That means we will display name error here. Okay, now what is the condition on blur? On blur, the condition is if e dot target dot value dot length is equal to 0. If length is 0, that means there is no value inside. Then set name error. Set name error. And what is the error? So name required, that is the error. Otherwise, if there is a value inside, then set name error, keep it empty. That means don't display anything. Now what is the logic here? Is you click inside, you are typing something. When you are typing something, it's okay, there is no problem. But you click inside, you are not typing anything, and you click outside, that means on blur, it will verify. And it will display that name is required. And you click inside and you are typing something, so some name, so and outside, then it is hidden. You can even define the validation in such a way that while typing itself, it can show. For that, we learn other events. We call them as key events, keyboard events we'll see. Initially, our intention is to understand how do we handle the change, how do we handle the blur, because these are element state related events. What are the element state related events? On change, on blur, on focus. On focus is nothing but we can add more functionality. Suppose when anybody is clicking here and trying to type something, then I want to display message. The message saying that name should be in uppercase only, or name should be minimum 4 characters. We want to show some tip about it. Then what we are doing here, we are writing another event. And what is that event? For the same text box, we have another event, on focus and handle focus. Okay. We will write a function, and in the function handle focus, we are collecting the value. Actually, we are not collecting the value. No need of this. Just we will put set name error. What is the name error we need to display? The name error we want is name in block letters. We want this message. Name in block letters. We want that message. And you see now it is going to display that. So name in block letters. Initially, it will be normal. It will not show anything. When I click inside, now it will show me name in block letters. And if you remove and don't type anything, then it will show the message that name required. And when you are typing the name and it says name in block letters, that means it shows you the warning. And once you entered some name, when entered the name and click outside, it is hidden. Later, as I told you, while typing itself also, we can verify. We can do lot of work. What we can do, even they type in small letters, we can convert it to capital letters. Even they type in small letters, we can convert that to capital letters. How do you convert that into capital letters? That means on blur, what we are doing. So on blur, if the value is present, that means what we are doing, we are setting the name. So on blur, what we do is we will use set name. That means if length is not 0, we will use what? Set name. E dot what? Target dot value. Target dot value. This must be to uppercase. We should convert the value into uppercase. But here some security related points are there. I will discuss about them detailedly. So initially, what is the logic is you click inside and it is showing an alert. That means this is focus. On focus, it is showing an alert. What is the alert? Name in block letters. Now I am typing the name and I am not using any block letters. And I click outside, then it should convert into block letters. because that's a very general logic we know. In JavaScript, we learned string functions, we can convert to uppercase and we can assign into the same reference. That means even they are not typing in block letters. Suppose I am writing Samsung LED TV. Even they are not writing in block letters, it will convert to block letters. So these are basic events. Remember, nowhere in the world of React learning, nobody will teach you on key up, on mouse over, on mouse down in ReactJS. Once go through YouTube or any website in the world of React, right? Nobody will teach you how to write on mouse over, on mouse down in React. Because generally people think that people who come to learn React, they are already very good genius in JavaScript. They think, and you are not, or you are genius, that depends on you. That means usually we think that React people means they are very great JavaScript developers. That is the profile actually. And for them, no need to explain any events because already they know all events. Only the point they have to transform them into React. No React tutorial in the world will teach you about events. They will tell you just the basic of event, like as I told you, event listener, event arguments, only that. Mouse event, keyboard events, all these nobody teaches you in React in general because already people learn these in JavaScript. Just they have to implement same logic in React. So nowhere in the world of React learning you will find event related examples because that is general things. All JavaScript events, whatever you learn, you can use in the same way in React. This is not a React logic. This is just a ordinary JavaScript logic on blur, how to collect the value, how to convert the case, and how to display. That's a general JavaScript logic. It's not a React logic. So just we implemented here to understand the situation of what is on change and what is on focus and what is on blur. These are element state related events. So on focus means when you click. On blur means when you click outside. On change means while you are making the change. So that means we are saying that suppose curved, so you say curved LED and it is converting that into uppercase. That is the basic how we can manage these events. On blur, on focus, on change, these are all the general events. So I will give an example here. Let me copy this example. This is example of how do we handle this option. Now we have a lot of logics here. That means depending on different types of elements, right? Let's see some logic again. Means how to handle these events. Another concept is yesterday we learned about style binding. Style binding is what? Style binding is nothing but we can apply the styles dynamically. Dynamically, we can apply the styles. That means we can configure the CSS styling dynamically to any element. We have another one, class binding. Class binding. With the combination of current events, we can try that. Class binding. What is class binding is nothing but, so it is a technique. It is a technique used to bind CSS classes to JSX elements dynamically. It is a technique used to bind CSS classes to JSX elements dynamically. So you can change the class dynamically. You can change the class dynamically. you can change the class dynamically. Same like style binding, we have class binding. If there are many styles to apply, then we can simply do that by using this class binding concept. So that means syntactically, if you have any element, so class name is defined by using, here we can have CSS class name. If you want, you can use a plus concat with some dynamic name. And instead of that, you already know in JavaScript binding expression also we can use. How to use binding expression? If I do like this, you know that I have to use some spaces. Am I right? I have to use the spaces because this is class name. After that, another class name you are concatenating. And if you don't use a space, it is concatenated immediately after E, then it will mismatch the class. To avoid this kind of issues, what we do, we can use div and class name. We can use a binding expression, you know, backtick. Huh? In backtick, you can define the CSS class name and you can put a space. You can put a binding expression of JavaScript and here we can put the dynamic name. Anything we can do, but this looks better. Why this looks better? Because already some classes are there. We are adding additional classes to that. Class binding is nothing but dynamically attaching a CSS class to elements. This is very commonly required. Why commonly required? For example, if a field is invalid, then just now what we have done, we displayed a message saying that name is required, but the entire text box should turn to red. The text box should turn to red. The label should turn to red. That means we want to change the complete appearance dynamically. Then we need to bind the classes. Let's see one example, how to use them. So how we can use this one. So I am designing another interaction here. Okay. Let's say deflex justify content center. We are creating a form and for the form we have a heading bi person fill. Okay, person fill, and here we say sign in, and we have a data list with a data term. So username and data definition input type is text, and we put a class form control. We have another data term password, and input type is password, and we have the class name as form control, and we have a button. So this is class btn some dark w100. Okay, you can see we have a simple form like this. This button is having the text login. That's a simple form we are having. Now for this form, we are adding some classes. I'm keeping a class. And what are the classes here? Suppose margin top 4, padding 4, border is 1, and border is there and border is 1. Okay. And we are having some rounded. Okay. These are all the classes we are having for the form. And form looks like this. We just have a border, padding, and we designed a simple form here. Now what is the concept is, for this form, we are adding Here we are adding a div and we use a checkbox. Input type as checkbox. And you know, checkbox will have a class called form check input. That is the checkbox class name. And a form usually will have a label. You know, HTML elements. Label for this is label, have a class form check label. And it is having some dark theme like this. This is a checkbox actually. We are having a dark theme. And margin S2. So little some gap will there. And this checkbox I am displaying like a form switch. You know, Bootstrap have a form switch. Then it will display like a switch. Now what should happen when I turn on this dark theme? Entire form appearance should change to black. That means it should change the complete appearance to black. And again turn off, it should be normal. That means whenever user is changing the checkbox, checkbox changing means checkbox checked is changing. If it is checked, then dark theme. If it is not checked, then it is normal. And already form is having some classes. Border class, rounded class, padding class, margin class. But we want to add one more effect into this. So see what we are doing now. So in the classes that it is having, we don't want to disturb what it is having. We want to add one new class into this, but it should be dynamically decided. Then what we will do is we will put here a constant and a theme and a set theme is equal to use state. It is a string. And in the string, I will give BG light. BG light is background light. BG light. Okay. So I will apply this theme to this form. We will apply that theme to that particular form. But already form is having so many classes. Keep them and add one more dynamically. Then how to do that? We have to, I will remove this. Okay. We have to put a dynamic expression. In this dynamic expression, we have to add some static classes. One class will be changing. And what we will do, we will use a backtick. You know, backtick in JavaScript allows binding expression. Without backtick, we have to use a lot of concatenation, plus, plus, plus. That is not recommended. So we will just use here. What is the class? What are the classes already? Margin top, padding for border and all this. In addition to them, one more class must come dynamically. Then how to put a binding expression? $block. And what is the value? Theme. The theme is by default what it is having? BG light. That is the theme it is having. So that is by default it is there. There is a light theme applied to that particular. So when you turn on this, it should change the theme. So what we have to do now? We need to write a function. What is the function? Handle theme change. Okay. Now this should fire up when user is changing the checkbox. That means we need to write here. What is the event? On change. On change handle theme change. And here we need to verify whether the checkbox checked or not. Because it is a checkbox. How you will verify checkbox is checked or not? We have to collect its event argument. How do we access? If e dot target dot, what is the property? Checked. If it is checked, then set theme. We will put a theme called BG dark. We will put a BG dark. Otherwise, we will set theme again. Set theme. Which one? BG light. And when you are using BG dark, make sure that text is white. text is white because dark theme text color will be displayed. We are adding two now, BG dark and text white. Now see what happens whenever I change this, it will turn to black. This, then it's normal. This is light theme and this is dark theme. That means we are changing the class dynamic. But we are keeping the existing classes and we are changing only one class dynamically. Yep. So is it audible to online people? Is it okay? Online people, is it audible? Yes. Okay. So fine. Now let's see here. What we are doing is we are applying one class dynamically to this. I want to change the button color also. That means button appearance also we want to change. I am just changing the theme of this form. Then actually for button we have different classes. So we need to maintain a different class. Constant. This is BTN theme and we will use set BTN theme. And use state. What is the default theme for the button? BTN, BTN dark and W100. That is the default theme for button. And that theme we will apply here. Instead of writing this manually, we will put a binding expression. So BTN theme. BTN theme is by default that. And we want to change the button theme when it is checked. And when it is checked, set button theme as what? BTN, BTN light and W100. That is the theme. And if it is not checked, then set button theme. We will reset it. BTN, BTN what? Dark and W100. That is the theme you are setting for the button. That means we are changing even the button appearance. That means the form and the button appearance we are dynamically changing. So this is the concept of what? Class binding. Binding the classes dynamically to that. This requires a lot of things later also. When you are doing validations, you are designing a form, we are keeping validations. If username is correct, verified, green color. If wrong, then not verified, red color. That means message should change the colors. All such appearances we can control by using style binding class. When you will use style binding and when you will use class binding. If you want any effect to any particular element and we don't want to reuse that regularly, then you know that we write inline style. When we write embedded classes and all, when we want to reuse, that means it is not only for this, you want to use it across various places, then better you go with what? Class binding. Currently I'm using all bootstrap classes. Instead of bootstrap classes, you can write your own classes and you can apply them. Such situations we will see how to handle. But here this is to make you understand two concepts. On change. Another one is class binding. We are using two techniques in this. So let me copy this example. This is an example for class binding and on change. So what are the events related to element state? We have blur, we have focus, we have on change. So many others also there, but these are enough, right? Let's see one complex example with this. Means how we can manage a complex example. Let's see another example. Suppose we will take one real world example like, so we have a EMI calculator. This generally you can do in JavaScript. You can replicate this in React. For example, we have some HDFC bank, and this HDFC bank is having a EMI calculator, personal loan EMI calculator. This is the personal loan EMI calculator. This is the loan calculator. And we want to design this. That is the calculator we want to create. And what is the concept of this is, when user is changing this slider, then its value will be inside this text box. When user is moving this slider, its value will be inside this text box. And this is the percentage. The value will be inside the text box. And when I click on calculate, it should show me how much I need to pay every month for that amount I have selected. That means monthly EMI, how much. I need to handle this. Here, everything depends on change. There are so many binding techniques here actually. If I want, I can enter the number here. I entered the number as 5. That means I will remove that. I entered 5. Then this slider will change. When you are changing the slider, that number is changing. When you change the number, the slider will be changing. We want two directions of binding techniques. So how to design this? After all, every JavaScript person can do this. It's a very simple thing. There's nothing complicated. Only the point we have to convert this into React. Right? In JavaScript, already our basic JavaScript learners do this. Right? And only the point is we need to convert the formulas of EMI into JavaScript understandable formulas, and we need to implement that. Right? So let's see how to implement the same in our React, how to design this. Let's see how to create this. I will take a new one. I will take a new component here, and let's make the component as EMI calculator. Okay. Let's add EMI calculator .jsx. Okay, let's export function EMI calculator. Okay, and just return some presentation, and let's say container fluid and BG secondary. Okay, and here we have a div. So class BG light and margin 4, padding 4. Okay, thus here we are designing. Let's make this in the startup. EMI calculator is in the startup. Okay, we are designing a div, and let's put a class row, and we have 3 columns inside it. So this is class call, and this is the class call. 3 columns equally distributed. So class as call. In this we are having amount you need, and ampersand hash 8377 semicolon, and the input type is a text. Okay, this is size. I just keep this as some 15. Okay, so for input type is text, and here we will keep size as 2, and we will keep years, and interest rate. So we have input type again text, and size as 4, and for this I will keep as some percent. Right, that is the option we are having. This is the first row we are having. That means this is the EMI calculator we are defining, and I will just keep this BG light. So this is the original size actually. This is the original size. So margin 4. Okay. This looks normal. Here we will give M4, P4. What else is there? Okay. So some heading also we will provide here. This is a personal loan EMI calculator. Huh? I'm just adding that EMI calculator. And we will keep what? Text center. This is class text white and text center. Okay. These are rough designs we are having. Okay. Now what we will do in this, we will add other rows. Huh? What are other rows? This is one row we are having. My is 3. Some gap will come. Okay. Next we have another row. Let's copy another div and we put a class as row. In this row again 3 columns are required. Div and the class is what? Call. Another div, the class is call. Another div, the class is call. Okay. And in this we need a sliders. How do we design slider? Input type as range. And you know range have min. Min is some 1 lakh. So max is some 10 lakh. Suppose like this we are defining. And value is some 1 lakh. Like this we are defining. That is the range actually. We are having a range. We are defining a range here. And what we will do, below this, we will keep a div and we have a span. This is having ampersand hash 8377 semicolon. This is 1 lakh. Huh? Okay, this is 1 lakh and another span, this is 10 lakhs. That is the min and max values we are having for this. And what is the slide here? That means range we are having a class W sum 50. So that means it will set the width to 50% or W what? 100. Then it will set it to 100%. Right? Because we have only these 25, 50, 100 like values. Actually, we can use another class for this. What is the class? You know, form range. Form range will put a slider. That is the best option for that. Okay, what else now is, for example, we are applying a class. So this is the class, some float end. Float end usually what it will do right side. We can just make the float right side. Okay, then we need another range. Let me copy this and this is another range. And in this range, the minimum is 1 because it is years. Maximum is 5 and value also 1. And here we will put 1 and we will put as 5. We will put as 5. That means 1 and 5 options are there. Okay. One more is there. This is related to interest rate. Huh? Interest rate, what is the value here for this slider? Minimum is 10.45. Maximum is some 18.45. And you know that step, you know, HTML slider have a step value. How much? 0.01. Otherwise, what is the step value? by default step value will be 1, right? You know how to set the step value 10.45. And here we will put this span is 10.45%, and this span will have 18.45%. 18.45%. So that is the second one we are having. Okay, next what we have to do. We will keep this style. We will add style and height as 100 VH. 100 VH is what? 100 viewport height, so that I can just keep the body size correctly. Now we need one more row below this. What is that? So we have a div and class is row. So class name row and margin y 3. And here we have only one column. Class is call, and we have a button. Button is calculate. And this is class btn primary. And we just put text end. We'll get the right side alignment here. That's calculate. Now we need to implement the functionality for this. That means when I am sliding this, then it has to display the value there. But they are not working. Sliders are not working because it will not support two-way binding. That means by default it is one-way binding. If you want to enable them any modification, you have to make sure every element is defined with on change. That is mandatory. So what we have to do here? So we will put a reference here. So we need to collect the values. Constant. So we need to collect all the values separately. First is amount and set amount. Okay, is equal to use state. What is the default amount? We need to set up default amount. Right? So what is the default amount is? Here we are keeping the default amount. It's a number. So it is how much? 1 lakh. That is the default amount. Okay, another constant. Second one is what? Years. And set years is equal to use state. Years is default 1. We have another constant. What is it? Rate. Set rate. And what is use state? It is 10.45. We need to bind these values to these elements. We have to bind the values to these elements. That means where is the slider now? Huh? Even these values we need to bind. So first we want to bind to this slider. So min is 1, max is 1. But what is the value? Value is coming from where? Amount. Amount na? It is coming from amount. Here value is coming from years. And here the value is coming from, so the value is coming from rate. That means it is coming from rate. We are binding those values. Now how do you handle the change? On change, it's not working. The same values we need to bind to text boxes also. That means now the text box value. What is the text box value? Text box value is amount. What is this text box value? Years. What is this text box value? So the value is rate. We are defining that. That means same values will be displayed there. Now this moving not working because no chance. Even typing also will not work. Why? On change. Two-way binding will work only with one event. What is that? On change. So function handle amount change. E. Now set amount. What we have to do? E dot target dot value. That means slider value, right? Another function handle handle year change. Handle year change. It also set years. E dot target dot value. We have to get the value. Another function. What is it? Handle rate change. E. We have to get set years. Set rate and E dot target dot value. Okay. And when to make them work? We have to make them work in two situations while changing the text box, while changing the slider. So text box is using, what is it? On change. On change. What is that? Handle amount change. This is using on change. This is handle year change. This is using on change. Handle what? Rate change. Same should work for these sliders also. That means where is the first slider? Yeah, this is on change. On change is handle amount change. And here on change. On change is what? Handle years change. Okay. And this one is on change. On change is what? Handle rate change. All these are working. Now what happens now? Now you can see that when user is moving the slider, that means it is going to change. Otherwise, it will not work. When I am moving the slider, it is going to change. Otherwise, it is not going to work. And one more option, here I am typing the value. That means I will type as 5. It will change the slider also. I entered 2. It will change the slider also. Slider also should change according to the value because same event we are binding there. The value of text box will be updated to slider. The value of slider will be updated to text box. And when I click calculate, I should calculate the amount to be paid every month. And for that we need EMI formulas to implement in JavaScript. So on calculate button click. That means how do you write the event? So we need event to handle. What is the function? Handle calculate. Calculate click. Calculate click is a button click. On calculate click, we need to collect the values. What are the values? Because you know generally how EMI is calculated. So actually you can Google the formulas. Even these people will give how EMI is calculated. This is the formula. That is the formula of EMI. You have to implement this in your JavaScript. And you should have a basic knowledge of how to convert mathematical formulas into JavaScript formulas. And for that you should have good knowledge of JavaScript operators, JavaScript math functions. Otherwise you can't do anything. That means it is not like you need to have a business idea. You don't need any business idea. They will give a business formula. We should convert that into computer understandable formula. You are a Java developer. You should use your Java operators, Java mathematical functions. You are a .NET developer, .NET operators, .NET mathematical functions. JavaScript, JavaScript operators, JavaScript mathematical functions. So we need, so P is principal amount. Principal amount is what? Amount. But anything you collect from a text box or from a slider is a string. So we need to parse int. Parse int, what is it? Amount. Amount. That is the principal amount. And we have R. R is what? Interest rate. That means parse int. Interest rate is float because it is a decimal value coming. Parse float. It is coming from where? Rate. But rate is defined in a percent. Then you know by 12 by 100. That is the basic formula of converting a percent into a number, because you know that you can't use percent in a calculation. You have to convert the percent into number. That means 14.50. It is divided by 12 and by 100. It will convert into number. You can't use directly percent in formulas because percent is a modulus operator. You know, JavaScript modulus operator, percent is a modulus operator. Okay, what is n? N is what? Number of periods. So that means parse int. Number of periods is nothing but years. Years, but years into 12. Why? Because years is a number. 1 year is 12 months. Because every month interest rate we have to calculate. Every month installment we have to calculate. Then we need to use into 12. 2 years, that means 24 months, like that. Okay, now how to implement this formula? P into n into 1 plus r to the power of n. To the power of n. This is power value, na? You know that it is a power value, right? So how do you define? Where EMI? EMI is equal to, we have to convert P. P into n. R. P into R. So after that into, we will put a parenthesis here, what it should do. So 1 plus R, that is actually math dot pow, power value. What is the base? 1 plus R. 1 plus R comma, 1 plus R, this is to the power of n. That is how you define. That means math dot power base and rise. This is the base, na? This is the base, raise it to the power of n. Raise it to the power of n. Okay. After that, divided by. That means slash. Slash. After the slash, we have to use what? Math dot pow. Again, what is it? 1 plus r. 1 plus r to the power of n to the power of n minus 1. That is the formula. That is the formula. N plus r to the power of n minus 1. That is the basic formula. That is the EMI we are having. That is the EMI we are having. And we want to display this EMI. So we will put a constant. So EMI and set EMI is equal to use state. EMI is a number initially. And we will put that number here. That means what? Set EMI is equal to whatever EMI you calculated. But this time what we will do? So we will display this like this. Math dot round. Round that EMI. We don't want multiple fractions and all. We can round that EMI. So we can add anything into this. That means you have two local string. And how to display a local string en hyphen in. We need what? Style. Style is currency. And what is currency? Currency is INR. Like this we are displaying. And we want to display that below this. That means below this I will add another div. And we will put a class as row. And margin y sum 4. And in this row we will have a div class as call text center. And here we will put a message. And what is that message? Here we will keep a div. And here we are writing your installment. Installment amount is your monthly EMI. Right. Your monthly EMI is the amount. Amount we will put here. So binding expression, what is it? EMI. Your monthly EMI is this for what? Next, how many years? That means we will put here what? Years. Years is the number that they selected. For next how many years? We will display that. And this EMI I will keep in a bold. That's bold. Huh? So I will keep a class as fs some 5. That means font size 4 or 5. Some number I am giving for that. Of course, we can just use a span and we can put a class Yeah, and we can put font weight as bold, FW as bold, and text primary. Okay, we are adding some effects also to this. That is actually the amount it should display there. As of now, it is empty. So I am selecting the amount you need. I am selecting the years. I am selecting this interest rate, and I click on calculate. It should do. That means on this button click, we have to call the function. That means what we have to do? On click, handle, calculate, click. That is the function we have to execute. Okay. Now I am selecting here the amount you need for the years, and here I click on calculate. It should get that and display. And what is that for the next 3? For the next 3 years. Or you can also give it as into 12 for the next months. Am I right? We can add anything that next 36 months. We are just adding that and we are displaying that option here. So technically, this requires all the event binding technique to understand. Here I used only one event. And what is that event? On change. On change. We are applying for text box and we are applying for slider. And without that, you can't handle any functionality, because on change is only the event that manages two-way binding. That means here two situations are there. Collect the value and display in text boxes. Identify changes in text boxes and update back. Then we need to implement this mechanism, right? This is one simple example of understanding how to use. And of course, this I don't want to display until user clicks calculate button. You can do that. Is it any special difficulty there? We can use show, hide, like style binding techniques. What we will do, for example, I'm adding a constant, that is a toggle, and we say show toggle is equal to use state, and here I will put as d none. D none is what? Display none. Display none. That is just a class. And what I will do, I will put this class here. For this div, I will put the class. Class is coming from toggle. And that means it will not display that. And when to display? When button is clicked. That means on calculate click, what we have to do? On calculate click, and just we have to use set toggle. Set toggle. What is the method? Show toggle. Yeah. Show toggle. What we have to do? Class name D block. You know, D none is hiding, D block is displaying. That means what we need to do now. So this is not showing. I'm moving the slider and I am selecting the number of years. I'm selecting the interest rate and click on calculate. It should display. That depends on how you define, right? And remember, I just implemented a sample formula, but actually their bank formula have a lot of conditions. Floating interest rate, every year this much interest rate will be reducted. Everything we have to write logically, right? Tomorrow with your genius brains, don't come and tell me that, sir, your EMI value is wrong. Right? I know that it is not accurate. Why? Because I haven't implemented all the formula. Because some genius people will be there concentrating on these kind of issues. And for that, I need to tell them that this EMI value is not accurate because it is not still implemented with complete implementation logic of that EMI. I just used a basic EMI formula. How they calculate is different. Means they will use same formula, but every year this much interest rate will be increasing, decreasing. They have such formulas. They implement them. How they implement? They write logic. If year is 1 year, then this interest rate. If year is 2, then this interest rate. That is the reason the value will be changing. We just implemented the logic, how to handle the situation, right? This is one example of how to handle the events. This is EMI calculator. And our main intention is to understand two-way binding, how to deal with two-way binding. And now two types of events you have learned: mouse events, another one element state events. Now we have keyboard events, form events. We'll see in next session. First, you need to try this. These are so many things I showed today. You have to try this. If you can try this, then I can give you some tasks. Monday, I will explain some concepts and I will give you some tasks. You have to try them, right? That will be good so that you can even handle the issues. Okay. Then Monday, no holiday, we have session. And in Monday session, we will discuss other events, keyboard events and clipboard events like that, other events. Okay. Right. Thank you.